Resource Center is at Rock Hill High School, and it's very, very exciting. So did I just hear somebody come in? Okay. Well, I want to value your time, like I said, so we're going to get started. And if I could have everybody, if y'all wouldn't mind muting, and we will have some time for questions at the end. And I'm actually fine if y'all have a specific question about something that I'm talking about. You know, if you want to unmute and ask, then I'm fine with that also. Okay, so let me present. Let's see. Sorry, I thought I had it pulled up. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you can?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so again, my name is Julia Chalker, and I'm the District Transition Specialist, and this is one of the most favorite trainings that I do every year, just kind of talking about my favorite topic of transition and what it is. I know a lot of people, when they hear transition, they think of older kids, and I am hopefully going to convince you to think otherwise. So I wanted to start out with this. I just love this meme. Being a special needs parent is like flying one of these for the first time without a manual, in the dark, while all the passengers are telling you what you're doing wrong. Does anybody relate to any of that? So, okay, so let's talk about transition. And let me preface this all by saying that I am an educator, and I've been involved in transition for a long time, but I'm also a family member. I have a 52-year-old brother with autism. So I have grown up with that, and I know how important transition is because I'm very blessed that Bobby has a very good adult life and very good services and support. So just want to preface by saying that. But let's talk a little bit about what is transition itself. So the word means movement or change, right? It's something that every one of us experience all the time. We're always going from one thing to another, from one state to another stage of life, that kind of thing. So, and as y'all know, transitions can be difficult for anyone at any stage, but we can learn to adapt to different transitions. And it gets easier for most of us with maturity and time, but like a lot of things, those with special needs, sometimes they need extra support and time in order to be able to navigate transitions. So transition as part of your son or daughter's IEP is something that comes down from the IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And what that basically says is that we need to start addressing that as part of the IEP by age 16 is what IDEA says. Now in Texas, we actually have it where we have to have it in place by age 14. So that's one thing that Texas does well is we do formally address that earlier. And basically, I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but what that looks at is making sure that we have appropriate post-secondary goals for after high school, and that we are providing whatever services we need to help an individual to reach those post-secondary goals. So that's as part of the IEP. Now, transition's a lifelong process. So we really, really do not want to wait until 14 to start thinking about transition. So we want it to be addressed and at least thought of and considered from diagnosis on and through every stage. And so even though it may not be part of the IEP, we want to always be keeping transition in mind. Okay, so this is probably the most important thing I talk about today is the difference between entitlement and eligibility. So entitlement, because of IDEA, students are entitled to receiving the services and supports that they need, a free, appropriate education, no matter what their disability is, irregardless of a family's income. It's just that whole right to a free and appropriate education. You are entitled to that. However, when you leave school services, you enter an entirely different system where you have to be eligible for services. So you're no longer entitled to receiving the services that you receive through the school district. You have to be eligible for services. You have to meet different agencies' guidelines. And it's a very big change in mindset and in services. So that entitlement versus eligibility is something really important to think about. So this just kind of summarized what I said. With the educational system, like I said, you're going to be served and there's no waiting lists or interest lists, and we're going to do what is needed based on a student's needs. And the school district is the provider. But in the adult service system, where you have to be eligible, you may not meet the eligibility criteria for a particular service or an adult agency. And unfortunately, in Texas, the waiting lists and interest lists can be very, very lengthy. So you may not get a particular service right away or for a very long time. And some services may not be available or not exist that you may have gotten in school. And you may be the one that has to go seek out a provider. So it's a very, very big difference between the being in school and being out of school and having to get those services. I want to talk a little bit about Medicaid waiver programs and what Medicaid waiver programs are. There are programs that can provide a pretty broad range of services for in-home and in the community. And what those are is they're programs that are essentially made to keep individuals out of what used to be called institutions or state supported living centers and keep them out in the community. And there are a lot of different waiver programs. I'm not going to go into great detail about these today. We actually have a whole training about these, but I can also provide you with information about the different programs. They each have different rules and funding amounts. It can be very complicated. And I keep a list of parents that are already navigating these programs that are willing to offer assistance to other parents that might be new to that. But just know that there's some services that they provide that are wonderful, like respite care, minor home modifications, day programming, therapy services, that kind of thing. And while that sounds great, doesn't it? All those things sound wonderful. But the bad news is, unfortunately, is in Texas, there is much, much more demand for these services than there are available resources. So some of you may have heard that there are very, very long waiting lists or interest lists for these programs in Texas. You can hear anywhere from 15 to 18 years, and it's very unacceptable. Texas is number 49 out of all the states in terms of interest lists. So that's a whole nother training about advocacy and letting our legislators know that this is not acceptable, but that is the way it is right now. Unfortunately, a lot of these interest lists are frozen. So a lot of years, people don't get on the interest list. They don't move up into services unless somebody passes away or moves or goes to a different program. So it's not a good thing, but that's why we really want people to get on these interest lists as soon as possible. And I'm kind of obnoxious about asking people if they're on the lists. Sometimes I'll meet people in public and ask them, and if it comes up. So, but they're very long, and they're first come, first serve. And some of the lists are managed through our local IDD agency that we'll talk about, and some are done statewide. But I'm going to tell you all about how to get on these lists. So, and there are some programs that you might get to the top of the list sooner, like if you have a child that has certain medical conditions, a lot of times they'll come up on a list before other lists. And some lists are more specific to adult programs. It can be very confusing, but I have lots of information for you. And unfortunately, you have a lot of time to investigate this if you are on these lists, unfortunately. And then the Texas legislature is who funds those slots. And next time that the legislature is in session again, we just really, really, really need to bombard them with how inappropriate it is that they don't fund these and how important it is that they support all citizens. Get me on my soapbox. Okay, so you might be asking, should I sign up for these? So they're not for everyone. You may or may not need these services later. Our hope is that you don't. But what we recommend is that you sign up, even if you think that your child may not qualify or need it. Generally, you would need to have an intellectual disability or autism. And autism, it doesn't matter what the IQ is. But if you have any doubt, just call to sign up. It literally takes like 15 minutes to do it. It's a short phone call. And when you come up for services, you can always say, I don't need it, or I'm getting services through another waiver. But please, please, if you have any doubts, go ahead and sign up for these waiting lists. So how do you get on these lists? This is a picture of a flyer that I can provide that gives you step-by-step instructions on who to call and what to say. Basically, all you need to have is your social security number and your child's diagnosis, and you have the script. So you're going to call your local authority, which is either LifePath if you're in Collin County, or Denton County MHMR if you're in Denton County, and you're going to have them put you on some of the lists, and then you're going to call the Department of Aging and Disability Services, and they'll get you on some different lists, and the script tells you exactly what to say. I do recommend that when you do this, that you get the name and contact of who you spoke with, and they're going to send you a letter of confirmation. And just be sure that you respond to any letters or phone calls that you get from them confirming your place in the waiting list. And they should do that every year. Depending on what list you're on, sometimes they'll do it by phone, sometimes they'll do it by letter, but make sure that you do that. And then also that if you move, that you give them your new address. Now, if you move out of state, every state is different, so you start over on a list. So just be sure also, if you just move within Texas, that you send that information to them, because I've had people that were on the list for years drop off because they forgot to do that. And that's a tragedy. Okay, to talk about those agencies I was just talking about, the IDD, or Intellectual and Developmental Disability Agencies, and that's what we call our local authorities. And hopefully some of y'all are already hooked up with these agencies, but they are kind of responsible for providing support for those with disabilities in the area, and they help deliver and qualify and maintain the waiting list for those programs. So, and they will determine eligibility, and that might be just through using school records. They might do their own testing, and you can be assigned a service coordinator or a case manager. So if you don't have that, you can call these agencies and ask to have one. You can also invite them to your child's ARD meeting, as long as we have a consent on file. And that'll usually be more important to do when your child is closer to graduating. But we love to invite agencies. We can't guarantee that they'll come, but a lot of times the case manager, if you're working with someone specifically, they can come. And sometimes, now the reason why it's really important to hook up with this IDD agency is because sometimes if you're on those interest lists and they know that you're not going to get any services from that for a number of years, sometimes they are able to provide some county funds. And those funds might help with something like respite care, or they might help with diapers, or something like that. I've even had students that were able to get some day programming, like in the summer and that kind of thing, through some of those county funds. And that will depend on year to year what county funds are available. Like, for example, I don't know if COVID's affecting that, if they have extra funds or less funds, but it just depends year to year. But sometimes they are able to help in that way. So it'd be worth checking out. Okay, so these are our agencies. For Collin County, it's LifePath Systems. And for Denton County, it's Denton County MHMR. That's their contact information. But I will also, I can provide that flyer that has the script on it, has the email for their intake person on it, and you can have the exact person to call. I've also heard that a lot of times you'll have to leave a message for someone. If you do call about a waiting list, I've been told that you will be considered to be on the waiting list for the date that you called. So that helps. And before I forget, I was going to see if you wouldn't mind if putting your name in the chat. You could just do it privately to me, Julia Chalker, just so I know who's attending today. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, I would really appreciate it. Okay, so financial considerations. And please know that all the things that I'm talking about today, most of those things are things that we have separate trainings about, where I might be bringing in a professional that can address the financial things or address the legal things we talk about. And this is just meant to be an overview, but keep an eye out for trainings about these specific items. So some supports that sometimes individuals with disabilities can get are two different types of benefits from Social Security Administration. And first of all, you have to meet their definition of disabled. And one thing is called supplemental security income. And SSI, they look at income and assets. So it's very common for students that apply for SSI may not qualify to get that until they're 18. And when they're 18, they don't consider the family income. So it's a lot easier to get that upon 18. So when you apply for that, you can't apply till you're 18, but if it is granted after 18, they will pay some arrears. And they will usually send information to the school for us to fill out, information about functioning level and need and that kind of thing. But that's SSI. And then there's also SSDI, and that's if a parent receives Social Security retirement or disability benefits that the student or an individual might be able to receive benefits from that. And that even happens after a parent passes away. For example, my brother with autism, he actually doesn't get SSI, he gets SSDI. And my father's been gone for like 18 years, and he gets SSDI. So all of that can be very confusing, and just know that I can steer you to the right people if you need more information about those. But I wanted to let you know that those are things you could check out. Another thing that's really important to think about with a child with special needs is long-term planning. And a lot of people don't think of this, but if you don't have a will written, you have a will, because it automatically, assumes that if anything were to happen to two parents, that the money would be divided equally between the children, and that default that happens. But if you have a family member who may require public benefits, even down the road in the future, it's really important that you have a will. And the reason being is if your child were to get a big lump of money through a will or an insurance policy, that kind of thing, it could actually threaten them getting benefits in the future. So that's something that if you don't have a will, you may really want to consider getting that put in place so that you don't take that risk. Another thing is changing your beneficiaries on your insurance policies. So you might want to change your beneficiaries to be all your other children and leave the son or daughter with special needs out. And it's for that same reason that it could hurt their public benefits in the future. Now, there's an answer to that. There's something called a special needs trust, and some of you may already have this. And what that is, it's something special that you have to get set up through an attorney, and it enables you to be able to have money available to your child that's not going to hurt his access to benefits in the future. So, but it's a legal thing that has to be set up. Now, a lot of parents are like, I don't need to do that yet. It's recommended that you do it as early as you can, but know that you can set it up and not put any money in it. It's just set up in case you need it. Again, we will have a whole training about these things, and it can be complicated. We also have lots of resources about that here at the Family Resource Center. Okay, so we're going to talk about turning 18, because a lot of parents, I think, sometimes think that because their child has a significant disability that they may not need to worry about some of these things. But when your child turns 18 years of age in Texas, their educational rights are going to transfer to them unless you have guardianship. So that means that, they become the decision maker in an ARD meeting, even if you wouldn't think that they would be capable of that. In the eyes of the law, they are the adult and the rights have transferred to them. So they could actually consent or refuse services. So we will give you formal notice of this a year before they turn 18, but I think it's good for parents to keep in mind that that will happen at age 18. And when they turn 18, we definitely invite you to the ARD meeting to participate in it. But your son or daughter could say that they don't want you at the meeting. It just becomes a little bit different of a situation and we don't see that happen very often, but I just want you to be aware that the transfer of rights does happen at age 18. Along those lines, for some families, they may want to consider upon age 18 whether guardianship or an alternative to guardianship may be an idea to investigate. Now, it's obviously a very important decision, but in the eyes of the law, like I said, even a person with a significant disability, they're able to make their own decisions when they turn 18 and when they reach the age of majority, which is 18 in Texas. And we've had parents where they did not get guardianship, and there's been situations where they were not allowed to go back in the emergency room. It's taken very seriously, and a lot of people don't realize how important that is. Let's see, I think I might have somebody that just tried to get in. Just a minute. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so you have to kind of determine whether guardianship would be appropriate or not. And there's a list of areas that you can kind of think of and determine whether can you be able to make decisions about medical finances. Would they be able to protect themselves against being vulnerable to other people? Education, legal decision-making. Are they able to care for themselves and be safe in the community? So these are different things that you will want to consider. And obviously, we don't even look at this until they're closer to age 18. But I can provide some resources about that. Would you mind, somebody I think who just joined us, would you mind putting your phone on mute? Thank you. But we also want to conserve as many rights of an individual as possible. So it's something that the legal system takes very seriously. And a lot of courts have made it a lot more difficult to get guardianship than it used to be. And there's other alternatives to guardianship that can be considered by family members, like supported decision-making, a power of attorney. The important thing to know about that is that the individual would need to really understand that in order for that to be appropriate. So that just kind of gives you an overview about guardianship to think about for the future. Okay, so let's talk about ways in general to support the transition process. So I think the reason why it is so important for us to think about transition from day one is that we need to kind of adjust our lens. I love this quote from Stephen Covey. So to begin with the end in mind means to start with a clear understanding of your destination. It means to know where you're going so that you better understand where you are now, and so that the steps you take are always in the right direction. So when I think of that, I encourage parents to think about, where do you want your child to be as an adult? And that could be in terms of education and training, employment, community participation, living arrangements, all those things. We want you to think ahead of where you want to be. And so if you can keep that, adjust your lens and keep that in mind all the time, that can totally make a difference on how you look at transition throughout your child's life. Always thinking of that end in mind, creating a vision about that. So where do you want their life to look like not just as an adult, but maybe 5 years from now, 10 years, 20 years from now. And I think it's also important to think and visualize, what do you not want your child's life to look like? You do not, I'm assuming, want your child sitting on your couch as an adult if they're capable of working. Do you feel strongly that you do not want them to live in a group home? That might be something that, you may not want. So think about what you don't want. Do you not want them being unemployed? I mean, I'm just really think of a vision of what you want for the future and work from that. And because of that, you need to start thinking of, what are they going to need to get there, to get to where you want and not get to where you don't want it to look like. So, and some of those things may be different skills that they need, certain behaviors. It might be financial planning that you need to do. So what are you going to need to do so your child can get there? So I do want to encourage you to have high expectations and presume that your child can reach high goals, and really focus on his or her strengths and interests. And I think a big part for parents is to learn about and consider all the options. So what are the different educational options after high school? What are the different types and levels of employment? There's supported employment, competitive employment, there's volunteering. You might not know about all the different types of living options other than living at home. So take the time early on to start looking at those different options and what that looks like here where we live in Texas. Have high expectations. When I say addressing transition from an early age, I also want to encourage you to really work on gradual independence. And I know y'all do this, but I know on hard days, sometimes it helps a lot to think of that end goals when you're trying to get your child to take on new skills as they're getting older. And, it might be, tying shoes. It might be using an alarm clock and a calendar. Also, there's so many great pieces of technology that we can utilize to help encourage gradual independence. Leisure skills, that's something that I always encourage parents to work on, expanding their options for unstructured time. And as a mom of 4 kids, I know that every kid needs to work on this. They a lot of times want to do the same thing, and we know what that involves: computers, TV, iPads. But that's something that is really helpful in the transition process, is to work on expanding those options. And then when you're working on new skills, I just suggest that you think about the end result and you kind of plan backwards. What do you need to do to be able to do this skill? And then you're going to gradually back your way out of it and lower your involvement until they acquire that skill. And let me tell you, as a member of a family, a special needs family, I know that can be very difficult. There's days when sometimes just to get through the day, you have to do something for your kid. But as much as possible, try to back off the support over time. And take risks. I know this is really hard as a parent, but sometimes you have to let your child fail. And sometimes that's very difficult, but allow them to succeed and fail with dignity. Another thing I really encourage is participating in the community. So I know that's a little difficult right now. Everything is a little different with COVID. But when possible, encourage them to be out in the community and to interact with people, to participate at whatever level they can in all your routines and errands. And I also love it when children and students get involved in outside extracurricular activities such as recreation and leisure, might be faith-based things, volunteering, that kind of thing. And I've got this great resource. This is a Google Doc that I have compiled that has a listing of recreational and leisure activities and camps and sensory-friendly events. And you could scroll through this, and there's everything from, therapeutic horseback riding, summer camps, adaptive swimming, that type of thing. And this just gives you some options to check into. Again, COVID makes things a little more difficult, But when we are able to, I encourage you to investigate some of these recreation and leisure activities. And if you ever have anything that can be added to that, please let me know. And then, as I mentioned, volunteering. And I think that is such a great thing for families to do together. It helps in so many different skills, whether it be social skills, employment skills, pre-employment skills. And I have suggestions for volunteering if anyone needs those. And then working on those community safety skills, being safe in the community, working on stranger danger, things like that. And I wanted to take a quick minute to tell you about a program that you may have already heard about called Take Me Home. And the Take Me Home program is a program that is offered by individual police departments. It unfortunately started in Pensacola, Florida years ago because of an unfortunate accident with someone with autism whose behavior was misconstrued and somebody thought they were threatening. And basically what it is, it's a database, and you fill out an application or an information sheet and provide a picture, and you give that to the police department, and they have that on file electronically so they can access that if ever needed. And it's great for, it's not just for individuals with disabilities, but it might be for someone with Alzheimer's or other communication issues. And it gives them information about maybe if they have had elopement issues, or if they have a communication problem, or if they have special interests that might calm them down if you were to talk to them. And I tell everyone the story that I had a student in years ago that had the Take Me Home program in Plano, and he was angry and upset, and the parents had to call the police. And by the time the police got there, they had already looked in the Take Me Home system and knew that this individual loved trains, and they were able to talk to him and interact with him about his special interest and calmed him down. And it was a good thing, and it could have been a lot different. So Take Me Home, we have it in Prosper, Frisco, Salina, and McKinney. So all 4 cities that go into Prosper ISD do have the Take Me Home program. And our website, we have the link to all those programs. So I recommend that you do it and that you update it every couple of years. So it's a great thing. Now, one thing to know is that they don't communicate with each other, the different cities. So if you had a parent that lived in Prosper and another parent that lived in Frisco, you'd want to do both cities. That's the Take Me Home program. Another thing I recommend is working on teaching self-advocacy skills. And, you know, for some, that might be just allowing your child to make choices. It could be about choosing a snack or what clothes they're going to wear. That's really the first step in learning to speak for yourself. And encourage them to be able to participate in decision-making and problem-solving throughout the day. And then I really recommend that you, at whatever level your child can navigate this, to teach them about their disability or about what things are their strengths and what things are challenging for them. And because that's something that they may need to advocate about when they get older. And then fostering skills of self-determination, the right to direct their own life. And we certainly work on this at school, and we definitely can use the assistance of being worked on at home also. So also think about long-term plans. So, you know, it may seem like a very long way off for your child to be working or going to school after they graduate, but we can promote career awareness at whatever level. It might be just talking to your child about work and about jobs and what their interests are. And you can practice soft skills from, you know, day one about how to, you know, take criticism, how to talk about appropriate topics with certain people. How can you, you know, all the different skills that you need to maintain employment. And then learn about the different types of employment options like I was talking about earlier, like competitive employment and supported employment. And your transition specialist in the district, and I'll introduce you to their names in a little bit, can help you with any of these things that you need help with. And then learn about what supports are going to be available when you leave school, and education, training, and programming. We want you to leave us with a plan and with supports that are already set up. Another thing I recommend is that parents reach out and network. You guys are the ones with the knowledge and the expertise, because y'all live it day to day. So I really recommend that you reach out to other parents, maybe join some parent organizations. There's a lot that we have on our website, from National Autism Association, Down Syndrome Guild, Frisco SAGE. There's all kinds of different organizations that you can join and network with. Go to parent trainings, the things like you're doing right this second, workshops, conferences. We try to keep an updated list of those types of things that are happening on our Facebook page that I'll tell you about. And then social media. We've got our Prosper ISD Special Needs Resource page. And this right here, and I can provide this slides, but there's a couple others that are really useful. Special needs, parents of North Texas. There's one, disability SSI Medicaid parents, that I learned something new from every time I go on it. A parent might have a question for me, and I will refer them to that page, because it's parents that are navigating those things right then and there. Protect Texas Fragile Kids. We have a lot of parents in the district that are very involved with that. There's a lot of other really good social media pages that are good to reach out to. And then advocate. So we know that you're your child's best advocate. So you might be needing to advocate for them at school. It might be needing to advocate them for better services in Texas. I just recommend that you contact your legislators to let your voice be heard, because nothing is going to change in Texas until they hear from their constituents. We will routinely put notices out on the Facebook page to say, this is going on in Austin right now. Please contact your legislator to tell them this. And a lot of times it'll have a script of what you can say, and sometimes there'll even be a link that'll send an email automatically. But I know how overwhelmed and busy y'all can be, but if y'all could take time to do this, it's so important. This picture in the right-hand corner is one of our students that was featured in a program and a promotion at the Capitol last time the legislator met, and they actually made some headway and got some things done for medically fragile kids. And this right here is somebody that's saying that they are 54,000 on the waiting list. And I said that correctly, 54,000. It's just not good. So anything that you can do to advocate and make it personal. Tell them about your personal experience. Tell them about your child. And I'm hoping to do a whole training just about advocacy later in the year. Okay, so you guys probably know that you cannot take care of others unless you take care of yourself. So this is just a little note about self-care, about making sure that you get enough simple things like sleep, water, and nutrition, that a lot of times we're the last one to get those things. I just encourage parents to take care of yourself through exercise and creatively expressing yourself, moving, going to the doctor regularly, and making sure you have me time. And I know that's hard. There's a lack of respite. A lot of times people will get respite care and don't have somebody to be able to do it. But in any way that you can to give yourself self-care, it's really important, because you're needed and you need to be healthy yourself. So, and that's another reason why that networking piece is so important. Find your tribe, find some peers that understand what you're doing and what you're going through on a day-to-day basis. I know personally that helps me a lot. And know that sometimes we have to seek professional help. So that's always an option, that if you need to get some extra help, there's no shame in that. Okay, so I'm going to spend just a little bit of time before we close talking about making life's transitions easier. And this came up a couple years ago because people thought I was going to talk about transitions from, a lot of times they'll think the transition specialist helps with the transition from preschool to elementary or middle school to high school. And while we are happy to help with that in any way we can, here's some tips to just kind of help you think about those things. So a lot of our students struggle with transition between daily things. So, and it's difficult for a lot of our students. So we just need to plan and prepare for transitions and kind of think ahead of what are we going to need to prime our students for. Give them adequate warning before changes, like using a countdown timer or a visual timer. And then I know that if you can, it's really helpful if you're using the same method at home as we are using at school. And along those lines, if something's working really well at home, let us know and we can do the same so that we have that consistency in helping our students transition from daily activities. Also, the use of visuals, like a picture, a written schedule, or it could be a written checklist. So as y'all know, if there's a major schedule change or event, we all like kind of a heads up. So if there's a field trip or a day where they're getting out early, or if you know a teacher's going to be out for a couple of days, it really helps to give our students an advanced warning that there's going to be a change. And that can even be something written as an accommodation in their IEP, just reminding teachers that your child needs advanced warning of a change in routine. And, you know, just that communication between home and school so that we can reinforce what the other's doing. So as far as yearly transitions between school years, so as you know, every new year is going to bring new faces and new places, and it takes a lot of planning. And what I recommend is that you allow your child to visit the new campus. A lot of times at your ARD meeting, you can talk about getting hooked up with someone that might be a case manager the following year that can maybe give you a tour or walk your schedule the week before school starts. And you can even do something like driving by the school building all the time, just so that your son or daughter is more comfortable with the new building that they'll be going to. Another thing you can do is to provide a template that has information all about junior, and it could have information about special interests, challenges, strengths, things that might upset, things that might calm, that kind of thing. So if teachers love to be provided with that extra information like that. So that's something that we can provide templates for. I actually need to change this link, and I'll do that before I send this out. But it's a template that's just kind of all about junior and something that would be really helpful to teachers, or for that matter, it could be somebody, you know, that maybe at a camp that your child's going to, or any new provider. Another transition that we look at is preschool to elementary, and that's some of the things that you have to think about is that you're going to have a much longer school day and there's not going to be any more nap time. The classes are going to be larger, and there's going to be a lot more unstructured time with the lunch and the recess and the PE. And not only is that going to be less structured time, but there's going to more than likely be more stimulation and less support. So those are some things to prepare for that transition. So always be kind of keeping in mind, what skills are we going to need for the next level? So when you're in preschool, you could be thinking of, you know, how to handle unstructured time, or what can we learn about how you act at recess. A big transition is from elementary to middle school, and I think this is a scary one for parents. You're going to have a lot more independence at the middle school level. Classes are going to change every 45 minutes or so, and a lot of times they will go to different rooms for that. They're going to be interacting with more teachers. Even if they're in a centralized program, they're going to have all their elective teachers and new faces. It's all about socializing and fitting in, and you got to deal with lockers, bullying, and puberty. Middle school can be very interesting. So that's a big transition. So I also recommend that you start with the least amount of support. Maybe if a student's moving from class to class, and having someone shadow them from a distance and assuming that they can do with less support, and then kind of assessing it and going on from there. So rather than over supporting and having the student get used to having that much support if they don't need it. We want them to to be able to be as independent as possible. Okay, middle school to high school, we think that elementary to middle school is scary, but I think parents are really scared about middle school to high school. And all the things that we just talked about middle school apply. But also you have to remember that we have to think about graduation requirements and elective choices. And the actual transition planning is going to come into a lot more emphasis now. So in middle school, we started doing a transition plan, but in high school, it's going to get a lot more serious about making sure that we are taking the steps necessary for your child to access post-secondary goals after high school. So, and what's great about transition planning is it helps us develop a plan that it's not just about the school. It shows, you know, what does the school need to be doing? What does the student need to be doing? What do parents need to be doing? And what do we need to do to get you hooked up with outside agencies? So we're all working together as a team. And that really comes into play as you're in high school. Then we have the big transition, high school to adult life. And you guys, parents, are such an important part of this process because you're the ones that's going to be there when the school's obligation is over. So it's really important that we are working together and that our job is to help parents to be realistic and also have high expectations. But also for high school to adult life, we don't want to give up on learning. We want them to continue to be lifelong learners that focus on their ability and their strengths and their interests and preferences. And then working with those outside agencies, whether it be LifePath or it might be Denton County MHMR or Texas Workforce Solutions, which helps a lot of our students with employment. So a big part of transition from high school to adult life is making sure we're hooked up with those agencies and make sure all those connections are made. So about those connections, the thing that you can do to really help with that is think about what is your child's day going to look like after graduating or leaving services. And we actually have an activity that you can do where you map out your son or daughter's day now in high school, for example, and then we have all those same hours that we're going to need to fill with programming or employment or education and training. And there's going to be pieces that, you know, your son or daughter may be used to getting the social connections and things. What are we going to do now to make sure that we are getting those later? And what connections do we need to make now to ensure that we smoothly transition to that? And you're going to have all kinds of new settings, caregivers, and things like that when you transition from services. And a lot of times it's very helpful for your son or daughter to experience some of those things while they're in school so they're not having everything new all at once when they leave us. So I'm going to end with this visual. I hate to call it this, but I call it the services cliff. We don't want you to fall off the services cliff of, you know, being entitled to getting everything and then falling off this cliff of adult services if we're not prepared and connected. So it takes so much preparation, but we are here to support you and help you with that preparation. And I wanted to let you know this is my contact information, and I can email this out to you. Make sure that you do put your name and contact information in the chat. You can do that privately to me if you'd like, and I will send this out to you. And I'm the district transition specialist, and I am happy to help you in any way that I can. I love to meet with families. You can also come to the Family Resource Center and get hooked up with lots of wonderful resources and information. And then we have Drew Webb, who is our Prosper High School Transition Specialist, and Juliana Murray, who's our Rock Hill High School Transition Specialist. And we also serve the middle schools that feed into the high schools. So please let us know how we can be of assistance to you. And I know that's a lot of information. So now I would like to open this up for questions. One second. Let's see. Stop presenting. Okay, so lots of information. Does anybody have any questions they would like answered?
I have a question about guardianship, and maybe I missed it, but how do you go about getting guardianship? And is there like, can I get guardianship from 18 to 23? Like, can I put a time limit on it? Would that help me?
You bet, I can answer that. Well, first of all, you can't do really anything about it until about 6 months before age 18. And in Texas, you do have to have an attorney. You don't in every state. And what they'll do is the first thing they do is they have you fill out a questionnaire about all the different areas of life, and if your child is able to do certain things like, know about medical care. Are they able to handle stranger danger? Are they able to make financial decisions? That kind of thing. So they have the parent fill that out. They also have a doctor fill out a questionnaire. And then, just to make a long story short, it goes through the court system, but they will also assign a guardian ad litem to your son or daughter to represent them. So it's a whole process. So they do want, there's all levels of guardianship. I have students with fairly significant cognitive disabilities that still vote and still do some things. But they do, guardianship is only for 1 year. So every year you reapply and do a renewal of guardianship. So, because there's nothing, I would love nothing better than to have a student that needs guardianship, but that maybe is able to not have that down the road as they gain some skills and independence. So, but it is done every year. So you could definitely limit the time limit on that. Does that answer your question?
No, absolutely. Thank you.
And we want to preserve as many rights for an individual as possible. And guardianship isn't appropriate for everyone. And we have a whole training that we do just on guardianship every year, because it's complicated. So, a good question. Thank you.
So that is something that I can get more information on later this year, maybe?
Absolutely. I can actually, right now, I have the questionnaire, I have the medical questionnaire, I have flyers, I can make sure I can send you everything I have right now too.
I won't need it for a few years.
And we do that training every year. We obviously don't promote any specific attorneys, but I do keep a list of attorneys that parents have used, because I always say I wouldn't want to go to a dentist that I didn't know somebody that went to. So I keep a list of attorneys that parents have used that I share with folks. We just don't endorse any particular, of course. And then I have parents that have been through the process that are happy to talk to other parents that are about to start the process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
You are going to share that slideshow?
I will, yeah. Did y'all put your information in? And normally, I didn't do it right this time. And normally we'll have a link to register for the training, and then I'll send you the link, but I did it wrong this time. So I'm kind of doing it backwards. So yeah, I'll send you the slides, and I can also send you the waiting list flyer and anything that you need. Now, I guess I could go ahead and pull up the website and show it to them, right? Do y'all want to see the website?
Sure.
Yeah.
And it has every type of resource you'd ever want. Let's see. I'm just going to do it the way I always do it. Prosper ISD Special Education is what I'm putting into Google. Y'all can see that, right? Y'all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And so I'm going to click on that, special education. And so this is our main page. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click right here on Family Resource Center. And this is our Family Resource Center. This is a calendar that has the different trainings and things that are going on. So you can see that We have a virtual SIB shop. And by the way, that's a program that supports brothers and sisters of students with special needs. And it's for ages 8 to 13. We do have some kids that are older that have been going for a long time that help. So if anyone wants information about that. We also have a middle school survival guide coming up about ADHD, social skills, all kinds of things. So we have the calendar here. But then if you look across the top, these are going to be full of resources about everything. So transition services, that's me, and that is our team, and some videos about what we do. And then you can look at this table of contents, like for guardianship and supported decision making. Actually, right here, it talks about guardianship and all kinds of information about it. It has that questionnaire that I was telling you about, the sample guardianship questionnaire, college readiness. Here's the link to the recreation and leisure. Here's information about SIB shops that I was telling you about. So just everything. Okay, the Take Me Home links are right here. So if you were to want to do that for Prosper, this links you directly to the form and information where you can upload it. So we now have everything in one place. There's some other really good resources like emergency preparedness, preparing for disasters. Here is all the different parent groups that I was mentioning. Texas Parent to Parent and Partners Resource Network. They do some great trainings. The ARC of DFW does a quarterly transition conference, and it's free. There's just, you could spend a lot of time just looking at all these different resources. So, and you can also get to this from the page by just clicking straight on transition services right here. In our Facebook page, I want to see that. Let's see, it's Prosper ISD Special Needs Resources. And it looks a little different because I'm the manager of it, but it has everything. Like here's today's training. The other day I posted about this is a Creating Lives We Love Special Needs Conference. It's free. And then this is an example of the last training we did where you could find it. It'll be on the website, but also you could click on this and see the training we did last week for coping with COVID. And that was great. And then here, this is an example of a way that y'all can advocate. Here, the Texas Council for Developmental Disabilities, they're asking for input right now from family members and from individuals themselves about the state of services in Texas. And this is a great opportunity to say it's not okay to have 18-year waiting lists. So a lot of times I'll put things in here that y'all can access that might be helpful. So I hope that helps you to know a little bit about the website and the Facebook page. So anything else? Great. Well, we will post this, and I hope it's been helpful. I know it's a lot of information. And like I said, we have, we break all the stuff down during the year. But we are so excited to have our new family resource specialists, support specialists with us, and they are going to have so much to offer. And if next time you get a chance to sign up to come into the Family Resource Center, it's going to be a wonderful benefit to the community. So, well, great.
How do you sign up to come into the center?
An email goes out every month with a newsletter with trainings that are coming up and things that are going on in the Family Resource Center, and they have a link to a Sign Up Genius. Especially with COVID, they're limiting, only one person can come in at a time. And is that a link that I could post in the chat? Yeah, I'll send that out to the people that have signed in today. And one other thing somebody suggested recently, and I thought this was a great idea. Y'all get so many emails, and we know that. But if if there are emails coming from someone about your child that you want to be sure you always get, that it doesn't get mixed up in all the hundreds of other emails, is that you can actually create a folder and then create a rule where those emails go directly into a certain folder that you check every day or every week. And I thought, that sounds so simple, but I thought that was such a great idea, because I'm constantly looking for emails, but because I know y'all get a lot of stuff. So, but check the Facebook page regularly, and this thing goes out once a month. And when I send out the thing, I'll also send a link to sign up to come into the Family Resource Center. They also look for volunteers to come and work here and help with, you know, shelving all the different resources, helping check out items. They do a lot of really cool things here. They have sensory items that you can check out that you might want to have your child try before you pay for them, like a sensory blankets, weighted blankets, and things like that. So there's just a plethora of stuff here. So
Thank you.
You are welcome. So, well, thank everyone for your time. And we will post this, and we hope we see you at the next training. And reach out to me directly if you need anything, okay?
Thank you very much. It was very helpful.
Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.